Powered by Sports Interaction, Canada Sportsbook.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Game Over Winnipeg. As always, my name is Lyss, and I'm joined by a special guest, Connor Hrabchak, today. I don't think I'm going to pronounce the name correctly. Connor's from Twitter, big Moose guy, big Jets guy, and we're here to break down the 2-1 overtime win against the Nashville Predators today. So, Connor, how are you doing today?
I'm good. Thank you for having me. That last name pronunciation was a lot closer than a lot of people get it, so I will take it.
I will take it as well. Excellent. Good. Glad to hear that. So, big win today. And I was talking to Connor before. Every time I get someone on who's not, Brady, I'm like, okay, we're going to talk about this. We're going to talk about that. What do you want to talk about? This game, we didn't even go over that. We didn't do the preamble. We're like, this was fun. Let's talk about the fun, right? Yeah, so that 2-1 win, it should have been a little bit further apart than 2-1, in my humble opinion, but I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, UC Saros, I was looking before the game started, and he hasn't been, amazing this year as he has in years past. He's been okay, and he got all of the goals save above expected or all the save percentage. All of it came back to him in this game because for 60 minutes he was amazing, and then of course the one shot that beats him is I don't even know. The Jets had so many better chances throughout the entire game, but that was the one that beat him. It was ridiculous.
Oh, I know. Oh my gosh, watching that come in. So I don't know if you guys are the same way as me, but the last little bit, the last couple of years, I've just been kind of apathetic about some of the Jets things, and feel like I've kind of become numb to some of the hockey things. They score, and I'm like, "Ooh, okay, sounds good." But twice today, the first goal, which I know we'll talk about, and then the Josh Morrissey breakaway in overtime, I was yelling. I was screaming. Oh my goodness gracious. And I didn't think that goal was going to go in, especially the way Saros had been playing. I was like, he'll grab that one, and then it trickled in, and I was like, oh my goodness, what a way to end this game.
Yeah, if Morrissey had scored at the end of a minute and a half shift on that breakaway, this would have been the craziest game ever. Of course, it ends on kind of an anticlimactic shot from the top of the circles, but that DeMello goal, obviously we'll talk about it, but that was amazing.
We'll get there. I need to psych myself up because we'll probably talk about that for I would say 85% of the show, one single goal.
Yeah.
No, but yeah, that's the shot that you're talking, yeah, it was kind of anticlimactic. I was like, okay, whatever. But Perfetti, before he finished his shift, he had that nice little push in off the boards, and I was like, oh my gosh. When I saw him get on the ice, I was like, oh my goodness, they're finally playing him in overtime. I was so happy. And then he was coming in up on the right wall there, and I was like, oh no, he's gonna get I thought he was gonna get stripped there, and then he had a nice little tuck around the defender, and then he got through and he kept the possession in there, and I was like, oh sweet, he's just gonna make sure they can keep it, because obviously possession is everything in 3-on-3 overtime, and I was like, he's just gonna keep it and then go off, and he went and he shift changed, and boom, because of that's why they scored. So I always make it about myself and the things that I want, and I always want Perfetti to do well, and I think he was a huge underrated part of that goal.
Yeah, and like you said, it's awesome to finally see him in overtime. I've been yelling for that the whole year. It kind of sucked that he was with Lowry and Dylan, who are two defensive-minded players, but it's nice to see him take the win. Yeah, I don't know. Just take what we can get at this point, but yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
I would have liked to see him with some more offensive-minded players, but
oh, for sure. Well, and Lowry playing in overtime. Lowry and Dylan playing in overtime at all. I just what? Why?
Yeah.
I don't get it. I don't love it. But that's besides the point. Like you said, we'll take the wins that we can get. They know what kind of player they have in him.
Exactly.
Let him play in the kind of situations he's good at. When he has space, honestly, even when he doesn't have space, he's good at making space, right? And when you have all that extra room to work with four less skaters on the ice, it's amazing to see what he can do, and I'm excited for him to get more chances to do that.
Yeah, I hope they stick with it, because when Ehlers comes back, or if Schmidt doesn't get hurt mid-game, you'll probably see him with, again, Schmidt or Ehlers, or just any other more offensive-minded players. They can really cool with which combos they want to go with. They won't be limited to putting Dylan and Lowry on the ice. So I hope that they don't go away from it.
Well, who deserves it tonight? I mean, I always think Dubois deserves it because, that's just me. But before overtime started, near the end of that third, I was like, man, oh man, I really liked a lot of what I've seen from this individual player tonight. But oh my goodness, that giveaway at the beginning of overtime. Oh my God. I was like, that is the most Pierre-Luc Dubois move ever.
Yeah, it was so funny because Dan Robertson was doing the play-by-play, and as Dubois coming into the zone, he says something like, "Oh, you don't want to make a careless pass because possession is so." Well, clearly, he wasn't listening because that was so bad.
My brother and I were watching downstairs, and we literally both looked at each other when he said that. We're like, "Oh my god, oh my god!" I was like, "You gotta be kidding me!" But
So
you know what?
bad. Yeah.
A win's a win. We'll take the way that went. The possession, like, obviously possession, like I said before, like, is everything in overtime, right? But I think a big indictment of how good a team is and how much a team wants to win is how they can kind of create that possession. And the Jets' possession was not, like, great, but they were able, like, anytime that there was, like, pressure together by the Predators and, like, puck battles, like, they always came out with it, which is really nice. And you love to see it. You love to see it.
Yeah, and that kind of a lot of that happened on the same shift. Is like the game would be just like in the normal flow of play for 5 minutes, and then the Jets would have like a minute and a half shift where they're just cycling it in the Predator zone, and then Saros would bail them out and make three ridiculous saves. But that was a theme that kept popping up, was the cycle game was working. They would get like 4 shots a shift, and then they would retrieve the puck. The puck retrieval offensively was really good, and that just led to the Predators being tired and then Saros having to bail them out
Yeah.
basically for the entire game. Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think that that's the big storyline of the game. And it was funny. You see people on Twitter. It's like, I feel like we see this like every time we get out goalied, and it's like, is it getting old at this point, or is it not? Because like, you see, it's like, is this how teams have felt against the Winnipeg Jets for the last 4 years? Because it's so true. It's like you're watching it, and I'm like, especially as a person who's so like expected goals driven in the way that I like to watch the game and stuff, it's like I don't even know. Like, obviously, I know what more I could have asked from my team in this game. It was to score a goal. That's what I could have asked from them. But it's like they were playing really well. There were a lot of really good things in this game, but UC Saros was absolutely the storyline of the game. He's had a rougher year, and it's shown in the Predators' standings results and game scores and whatnot. But he's still like a really good goalie, and I think, like, you know, with outliers aside, is still a easily top 10, if not higher, in the league. Like, he's a fantastic goaltender, and we really saw the best of UC Saros tonight.
Yeah, and good goalies always have the talent to just have ridiculous nights like this. Even last year when Hellebuck was barely top 10 in like goal save above expected, and it was like a quote down year for him, he would still have a game every 2 weeks or 3 weeks where he would make 40 saves and save 4 more goals than he should have. And that's just what Saros did tonight. Like, yeah, he might be having a rough year, but he always has the talent to just go unconscious for a game and almost steal the win, steal a point.
Absolutely, and I genuinely thought it was going to happen, and you thought it was going to happen too. You had an awful
I
tweet. It's
did.
like, oh, this has a 2-1 shootout win for the Preds all over it. I was like, I'm booting him off the show, I swear to God, because
I didn't expect Kyle Connor to score from the top of the circles, and that would be the the winner. I didn't think Saros would let that in.
Yeah, no, I definitely didn't think that one was going in either. But I thought that, like, the top 6 in general tonight, I thought was quite good, and I thought they were creating a lot of really fantastic chances, and I thought that they had some really good pressure tonight. And the chances themselves, I should correct myself, like the end part of those chances, like their finishing was a little bit rougher, and the actual shots, like hitting the net, was a little bit rougher than, you know, we would have liked for it to have been. But as far as, like, you know, actually making their way into the zone and setting things up pretty well, like, I thought that both of the top lines tonight were pretty good. And that's what I've been looking for personally, is both of the top lines to be good on the same night, because it seems like we're getting one or the other half the time. It's like either the Scheifele line's firing on all cylinders and Dubois looks like he's playing midget hockey and learned how to skate yesterday, or vice versa, right? So I thought that they both looked good tonight, and that's always, you know, very exciting.
Yeah, and the top 6 is more like, in terms of on entry, they like to carry the puck in more. Like the bottom 6 it's so noticeable that they just dump the puck in at every chance. As soon as they get over the red line, they just hammer it in and then go chase it. And the Predators, like, there were times where the third and fourth line would get sustained pressure, and I actually liked the fourth line tonight in their limited minutes, it seemed. But the top 6 carrying it in and then sustaining the pressure seemed to be a lot more effective than the bottom 6, who is more driven to just dumping it in, and then the Predators would break it right out.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we have to talk about the standalone Winnipeg Jets goal of the night in regulation. I was texting Connor before the game. I was like, hey, like, here, you know, things, this is how it's going to work. I'll send you the link. This is what we'll do. I was like, we can, you know, chat throughout the game if we want to talk about some storylines we want to talk about. When DeMello scored, I was like, nothing else. I'm not talking about anything else in this game. But I was like,
That's
you know
it.
what? I'm a
That's it.
professional. I can talk about some other things, but I don't really want to talk about anything else. I want to talk about this. Dylan DeMello scores his first goal since November 13th of 2021. How did you feel about that?
I loved the goal. Like, he's in the crease and he like boxes out a defender and goes to his backhand and taps it in. Like, it's not it didn't just like bounce in off of him. Like, that takes a decent amount of skill to box out a defender and tap it in on your backhand. And then the funniest thing for me was he scores the goal and then his next like 3 shifts, I swear he was below the goal line for the entire shift. He scored a goal and he just got so much confidence offensively that he just kept pushing. And it was like, all right, I mean, if this is gonna happen, this is gonna happen. If you're gonna be coming off as a defenseman, go for it. And then he just in the second period, early in the second, he had one shift where he attempted like 3 shots, and I was like, I've never seen that from DeMello in my life. That goal just like gave him so much confidence. It was so funny.
And I love that. Like, I think that's the thing. Like,
Yeah.
when people talk about Dylan DeMello, they see, this was his, 9th career goal or something ridiculous like that, right? Like,
Yeah.
they see not a lot of goals, not a lot of points, and like, oh, he's bad at offense. And I've always liked to argue with that a little bit because I find that he actually holds the point quite well and makes better decisions than a lot of other guys that people might consider to be offensive defensemen, which people often just like to call dudes who suck at defense as offensive defensemen and vice versa.
Right.
When guys, can't score, can't shoot, they're like, oh, defensive defenseman. I'm like, no, he's just bad. But Dylan DeMello is like actually
Right.
like a good defenseman. He's good at everything. And
Right.
that goal I love particularly because it was at 4-on-4. And one thing that drives me nuts about the Jets is that when it's not 5-on-5, when it's 4-on-4 or 3-on-3, sometimes they just automatically resort to defense. It's like, no.
Yeah.
You're at the same thing here. Like, they're struggling, you're struggling, like you're both down a man. Act like you're not down one more than they are. And I love that he took that chance and it worked out in his favor.
Yeah, and a lot of the times, like, it's a very conservative way to think is like you're going to play defensively because you don't want to give up chances. But if you believe that Scheifele, Connor, Morrissey, and DeMello are better than the other 4, like, go for it. Like, just play offensively. Have DeMello be in the crease, boxing out defenders and tapping in goals. Like, it's definitely the right thing to do because being conservative just puts whoever has the better players, which in this game would be the Jets, at a disadvantage. You're not taking advantage of the open space, having the better players and stuff like that. So I'm glad that they push the pace.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you're 100% right on that. It's like, who has the better players in that situation? You're right. It absolutely is the Winnipeg Jets. Who was the guy that Dylan DeMello boxed out in front of the net? It was Matt Duchene. Give me a break. Do you think Matt Duchene's better than Mark Scheifele? Not in this year.
No way. No way.
So I love it. I think it's great. Yeah. And also, it's just like, you like to see good guys do well. And everyone loves Dylan DeMello. Like, come on. What's not to like about that guy?
Exactly. He's amazing at everything. And he never scores, and it's so nice to see him get rewarded with one because you know how much he does defensively. So to see him get a goal is just, it's like he's being vindicated and he's being shown that he has so much value to this team that goes unnoticed.
Absolutely, yeah. And and I'm not sure if you're the same way, but I love to sit here and pick apart, like, oh, these are all the different, smaller metrics on things like zone entries or zone exits, or here's his heat map of net front defending, and here are all the things that he's really good at. And it's like, okay, that's great, but there's nothing more fun than scoring a goal. So you're really happy for the guy when it happens.
Exactly. And no one deserves it more than him. He does so much defensively. He needed one.
Absolutely. Great. And so super nice to see. Was so happy for that. And like you said, the offensive like prowess that we saw from him in the ensuing shifts, I was like, oh my goodness, like, has he been revived? Is this a new angle we're gonna see? I love it. It's fun. Have fun with it. And the Jets were the better offensive team in this game by a country mile, right? So it's great to see when all 5 players that are on the ice can be activated in that.
Yeah, he was definitely feeling himself after that goal because he was going for number 2. And yeah, like you said, they were way better offensively. And I posted the deserve to win-o-meter at the second period, and throughout Stars from the Predators, they look bad. And I don't know how they've won games if that's how they look every night, but yeah, it's not good.
For sure. I agree with that. But one thing I want to talk about that also looked bad on our side, the power play tonight. Oh my goodness, the amount of chances that these guys had, or that they could have had on the power play, like the 4 minute that they had, you know, all the different situations they were in. What is up with this power play?
Yeah, I don't know because they finally like tonight they looked good and Saros kind of goalied them, but it's been a concern kind of the whole year. They've been roughly bottom 10 or like at the bottom 10 mark in power play percentage. They're starting to generate better chances, but you need to see goals start going in because it's games like these where the goalie is playing out of his mind, where you need a power play goal or two to put you over the edge, because otherwise it's 1-1 with 5 minutes left in a team that you should be killing because you've gotten 4 power plays and you haven't scored on any of them. So it was nice to see them move it around better, but they need to capitalize and actually start scoring because they have too much talent on that top unit to not score.
Absolutely, and that's 100% right too. And it's, again, like you're watching the game and you're watching this unit. Like there were a couple times where the first power play unit would stay out for the entire time, and even at 5-on-5, those top power play unit guys, there were a couple times where they pulled off like almost entire offensive zone shift changes. Like their possession was really good tonight, and it's like, okay, but at the end of the day, it's a 1-1 game, and if they score, you're down a goal. I don't care how well you're playing. You need to put a puck in the goal. You have to. You have to. And the power play is the perfect chance to do that when you have such great offensive talent like they do, and they just couldn't do it.
Yeah, and like there's certain plays that the Jets run where it's like, well, you see the seam pass setting up, or you see when Wheeler walks it out from behind the net and then he tries to go back to Connor. And it seemed like everything that the Jets like to do on the power play was working tonight, but they just couldn't beat Saros. But at what point is like these plays, even when they do work, they're not scoring? So is it a schematic issue where they're not drawing up the right things for the right players? They started the year off just forcing it to Kyle Connor basically and saying, hey, beat the goalie one-on-one with a one-timer. We're just going to give you 5 chances. And if you don't score, you don't score. Now it seems like they're starting to spread it out a little bit more. Shakes is getting some one-timers, Morrissey from the top, Wheeler down low. But it's just like they're generating, but they're just not finishing. And it kind of boggled me this game for sure. There are games where they go for 4 in the power play and you're like, yeah, they didn't deserve to score this game. They kind of deserve to, but you need to see results.
Yeah, absolutely. I always like to not finish off the segment because we're not done yet, but talk specifically about why I've chosen my jersey of the day and why it's on the wall. What did you think of Dubois' game tonight, and how important do you think he was as a player, especially early on in the frame when the whole, before the Nate Schmidt hit, when he had a couple of, good rushes to the net and, kind of scrapped with the boys a little bit and all that kind of stuff, and just kind of brought that energy to the room. Obviously, we can talk a little bit about the Lowry fight and what that does to the team as well. But what were your thoughts on Dubois' game tonight and also his second line there?
When I was taking notes, I wrote in the first period that it's good that he was looking good because the sick thing that's kind of was scary at the end of the last game where everyone thought he got benched because he had a bad game against Vegas, and then he came back and you weren't sure if he was going to look like bad again or slow or sick or clearly still hurting. So it was good that he came out of the gate and was honestly one of the best offensive players for the Jets tonight, maybe the best. And then that line was great. Kyle Connor had 11.
Word, so sorry.
Right.
Go on.
Fair enough. Best forward. We'll go with that.
Go on.
Kyle Connor had 11 shots, and Dubois is a big reason for that. He creates space for him. I thought he had a great game. Best forward on the team tonight.
Yeah, I thought it was great, and I think it's really important for the team. They started off the game not bad or anything like that, but you need a couple of those drives to the net. You need a couple of those pokes and a couple of those tussles. Not big crazy fights or anything stupid like that, but just to kind of get the energy up and get the guys to understand, like, we need to start putting the pressure on here and that kind of stuff. So I think that really set the tone early on, which is good. And I'm also anti-fighting, so I like trying to score a goal more than just trying to beat the shit out of some guy for no reason. So I like that. Like, I think, and Dubois also is the kind of guy that would try and take off someone's head to bring up the game for no reason. So I like that. I'm good. But speaking of taking off someone's head, we had the Adam Lowry fight, of course, that came after the Schmidt hit. Thoughts on that?
So I initially thought, do we know what he hurt? Was it his shoulder?
I want to say shoulder. The way he labored off the ice, it
Okay.
looked shoulder.
Yeah. I thought when saw the first replay, I thought that's a headshot. And then I saw him kind of go off the ice holding his shoulder. So then, I don't know, my views on the hit didn't really change. I still think he got him in the head. But yeah, it was, when you slow it down, it looks really bad, but still it's late. The puck is probably at the blue line at that point because Schmidt rimmed it around the boards, and it's high, and I just don't like it. And then after all of that, I'm pretty sure it was even, or there was no penalty on the hit specifically.
Yeah.
And then Lowry had the fight. So yeah, there was no penalties to come from it. I think it was penalizable, if that's a word, but I did not like it at all.
Yeah, no, for sure. And again, what's the opposite of a boomer? I always say, is it snowflake? What's the opposite of a boomer? I'm a Gen Zer, whatever. So
Snowflake?
yeah, I'm a snowflake. I don't love hitting either, but particularly in situations like that, like you said, the puck is at the blue line. What are you doing other than taking yourself out of the play? There's nothing effective there. Like, I understand maybe for I guess division rivals or whatever, or if you're in a playoff series and you're trying to wear down the guys or whatever, I don't know. But I just don't find that to be a super effective hit. And in this case, you hurt somebody, you injured someone, and it's like, who wants that, right? And, obviously, first and foremost, you hope for the best for Nate Schmidt. Like, I hate to see that. Not to speculate on the injury too much or anything like that, but to speculate on the injury. Whenever you hold yourself like that, like, to me, that doesn't look like a head injury. If your head is like real injured on the ice, you're not acting like that. You're confused. You're out of it. Like, to me, it looked like a physical like injury to something in the upper body, maybe a neck, maybe a shoulder, but I'm thinking something shoulder related, and I'm hoping it's just one of those, sometimes when you get hit real hard, it's like ouch, and then once that wears off, you're fine. But and not returning to the game, I'm always okay with that, because better safe than sorry, but cheaper is hoping for the best for Nate Schmidt.
Yeah, you see it kind of in football all the time where guys get like stingers in their shoulders, and that's like the best case scenario for when a player goes off like laboring their shoulder. Tim Stützle for Ottawa got a shoulder injury a couple games ago, and he sprinted down the tunnel, and you're like, well, he's not coming back this game. You hope he's not out long term. And then they say he's only out a week, which is good news for them. But shoulder injuries are so tricky because it could be anything from a stinger and they're just being taking precaution, not bringing him back into the game, or it could be he's out for 3 months because he sprained something or dislocated something, and you just never know. But yeah, hoping for the best.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And before we wrap up with our final thoughts on the game, I'm going to do a quick ad read from our friends over at Sports Interaction. So I think you know what way it's going to go. Make your bet with Sports Interaction. Whether it's hockey, football, or basketball, or even the World Cup final coming up, Sports Interaction has you covered. Bet pregame, live and play, or on one of our many prop bets. Sports Interaction makes it easy to deposit, play, and cash out. Join now and see all sports betting has to offer. Want to bet? Head to sportsinteraction.com/SDPN. That's sportsinteraction.com/SDPN. 19 plus, please play responsibly. So just to kind of wrap up our thoughts on the game here. So obviously we talked specifically about, some of the good, the bad that we saw and whatnot. What from this game, Connor, do you think that you really want to see the Jets kind of carry forward with into their next game? I believe on Saturday. I think they're going over to the West Coast to play against Vancouver. What do you want to see continue against the Canucks this coming weekend?
Well, Hellebuyck let in that one concerning goal at the start, and then he ended up with like a .960 save percentage and saved over 2.5 goals over expected. So he's fine. Obviously, Riddick is going to get a game in one of those two, with it being a back-to-back in Seattle on Sunday. But Hellebuyck, obviously, the Jets go as far as he goes. The top six, like you said, both playing good at the same time. It always feels like one's working and one's not. That's huge for this team's success if both Dubois and Scheifele are carrying their lines and being number one centers. Their top six becomes amazing, and Ehlers is only 2-3 weeks away. And then the bottom six, I have mixed feelings about the bottom six because the wingers seem so interchangeable. Like, one game, Gagne will have a great game, and then he'll get promoted to the second line, and Eisman will get dropped down. And then Stenlund had a great game, who was on the Moose a week ago. So the bottom six is hard to have takeaways from because it changes so much, and certain players are playing good and certain players are not, and it just changes so much on a game-to-game basis. But the top six, Hellebuyck, your best players have to be your best players.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's one thing that this is going to be a really weird, this is a thing that I do. I go on these weird analogies and you wonder where I'm going, and then I bring it back and I'm like, see, it makes sense. And then you're like, still, no. But in school, I do these things called case competitions where it's basically, you get a business case, you analyze the problem, you present your solution. And as a case comp team, when you do a lot of these, together, you figure out, your strengths, your weaknesses, and that kind of stuff. And one of my coaches once said to me, he's like, okay, what are you bad at? Make it good. What are you good at? Make it great. And what are you great at? And make that your competitive advantage. And I think that's a really important thing for the Winnipeg Jets, is to understand their competitive advantage will always be Connor Hrabchak until he goes somewhere else in free agency, because let's be real. Just kidding. Just kidding. We don't need to go there right now. We don't need to go there right now.
No.
But their other competitive advantage should be that they have two fantastic centers as a 1-2 punch down the middle. And not every team is as lucky as we are to have guys like that. And that's something that's great and needs to become a competitive advantage of theirs. So I think that's a really good takeaway to go forward with. And, when both of those lines can really play, then we can see what this team is fully capable of. And that's exciting.
Yeah. And obviously, we talked about Schmidt. We don't know with him, but the defense core, I thought Sandberg played good.
Yes.
Like, obviously, when you go down to 5D, you're going to ask for more out of everyone. But I thought Sandberg, he got some shifts with Pierre-Luc. He got some shifts with DeMello. They were, just mixing it up all the time. But I thought he had a great game. You're going to need more. You talked about what you're good at, making it great. I think the defense core is, good, okay to good. If they can become great and get healthy, the Jets, well, they are contenders now, I think, but they can become one of the elite contenders.
Absolutely. Yeah. 100% agreed. So Connor, thank you so much for coming and joining me on Game Over. Always a pleasure to have you all in the chat, have you all coming and watching. Those of you who listen on podcasts after the fact, we appreciate you. You can find everything SDPN related on Twitter. For all of the Game Over networks, you can find them at SDPN Sports. If you ever want to chat with me or see what nonsense I have to say, you can find me on Twitter as well. My username is Lyss Hood, and Connor's, I want to say, is Connor Hrabchak 1? ?
Yes.
Excellent. Nailed it. So you can find us there, and we'll see you all on Saturday for next game. So Connor, thank you so much. Have a good night. Thanks everyone for coming and listening, and thank goodness that puck went in.
Yeah, no kidding. Thank you for having me.
Take care.
Awesome.
Powered by Sports Interaction, Canada Sportsbook.